I have gained a sense of community from coming here. I've learned about how to do strength training and balance that with cardio. I know that's one thing. You have another great podcast episode on that, on how to balance out the number of times you do strength training and cardio during the week. But we talk a lot about sort of coaches and trainers being the sort of center of this wellness hub, having great recommendations for like, seems like you're having a lot of pain in that movement. Here's a great physical therapist that I know. Physical therapists are a great asset in this field. Seems like, muscle recovery is a little bit challenging right now. We've got some great supplements, creatine, or I know Denise will often share her protein intake. Here's how I get my protein in. So we think about that a lot, is that hub. We've got a wheel and spokes coming off it in all the different wellness directions, mental health, physical health, nutrition, and trainers kind of being at the center of that.
Welcome to Real Women, Real Results, the podcast where we go beyond the reps and dive into what it really takes to live a stronger, healthier, and more confident life. I'm your host, Jamie Ravel, women's fitness expert and founder of W3 Body Women's Training Gyms in Chicagoland. Each week, we'll bring you real stories, expert insights, and the tools you need to create real results. Let's get into it. Welcome back to Real Women, Real Results. Today's episode is a really exciting one because we're pulling back the curtain on the fitness industry itself. What's trending, what's evolving, what's just noise. I'm joined by one of our very own members, Laurel. She was actually a founding member here at the Elmhurst location, who also works with NASM or NASM, which stands for the National Academy of Sports Medicine. So she's not just in the gym, but she's behind the scenes of the entire fitness industry. She was just at a major fitness trade show, and she's also involved in reviewing and launching products and software. So today we are getting the inside scoop. So welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jamie. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, so tell us a little bit about you and your background and your role at NASM.
Yeah, happy to. I actually have a background in education, so I worked in ed tech for the majority of my career. I started as an elementary school teacher, but moved into the ed tech space, and so I've worked in adult education software products for many years. And I joined NASM a little over a year ago, so it's a really exciting space to work in, coming from education, working with all of these fitness experts. So what NASM does is that we produce educational products for people who work in the fitness industry. So our biggest product is a certified personal training course. So for people who want to become personal trainers, we also have a partner brand, AFA, that produces one of the largest group fitness instructor programs. So lots of people who want to work one-on-one or in group exercise environments come to us for their certification. So it's very exciting to learn about what's trending and what do our customers really want to focus on. So we know that strength has had a huge renaissance. So we have a big focus right now on our corrective exercise and our performance enhancements products, because those are places that we know personal trainers want more knowledge. We also have a really big focus right now on some of our weight loss, and we have a course on understanding weight loss medications. That's a really big area of focus for our personal training customers to be able to talk with their clients about. So that's a really exciting part of my job, is best understanding our customers are people like the trainers in the gym, right? Everyone at W3 Body, all of our great coaches, what is it that they need to be experts on so that they can best communicate to their clients in the gym?
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I will say for anyone listening who's not familiar with NASM and or personal training certifications and things, that is like the gold standard. If I see NASM on a resume, done, in terms of qualifications. Now, obviously, there's more to that. Personality and things, that's huge, especially for what we do. But that from an education piece, knowing that they studied, they took this exam, which is not easy, and passed, that, they took it seriously and that they had to know their stuff in order to pass that test. So
yeah, that's something that's super important to us, is to make sure that we are producing personal trainers who are going to yield results for their clients, and that employers, health clubs, gyms can trust the NASM brand means high quality, means these people have really studied, they know anatomy and physiology, they know how people should move their bodies, they know about the 5 kinetic chain checkpoints, they know how to keep people safe in the gym, safe, healthy, and becoming stronger and more fit.
I didn't realize you had a background in education either. So that's kind of cool that you've tied it all in, And just a fun fact, my first non-specialty, meaning specialty group fitness class, My first kind of overall certification was AFA Group
Yeah.
X back
Yes.
in 2008,
I know. Yeah. Yep.
maybe?
Yes.
Almost 20
AFA.
years ago.
AFA
Wow.
has been around a long time,
Yeah.
a little bit over 40 years. So I imagine at women's workout world, I feel like it'd be in those days too. I'm guessing there was a lot of AFA folks there too.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it was awesome. I honestly, I still remember so much
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
my in-person training for them.
Yes.
So
Yep.
really
Yep.
cool. So what does product and software launches actually mean in the fitness space for you guys?
Yeah. So for us, again, our big audience are like trainers, nutrition coaches, wellness coaches. So not so much, consumers. So people who are coming into the gym, but people who work in gyms and health clubs. So when we're launching products, it involves a ton of research. One thing that makes me really proud to work at NASM is that we have an amazing group of subject matter experts, PhDs, exercise physiologists, physical therapists, dietitians, all kinds of people with deep expertise in the field who are contributing to our courses. So we're actually working on an update to our flagship product right now and, writing the content for that, updating the content, making sure that it's scientifically accurate, making sure that it's reflecting the best trends takes us a decent amount of time. So that's what we're working on right now. And then we're able to release that as we publish both physical textbooks and digital courses. And again, as part of that, we have that rigorous exam that we also need to make sure is really accurate and reflecting people's knowledge. So that's the sort of backstory of it. And that's how we can make sure that the people who get our certifications are really highly qualified. And the really exciting part, though, I think I mentioned before, is just understanding what people are looking for. So, right, I'm right now pulling together a business case to be like, we need to do more with Pilates. Pilates is blowing up. We know Pilates has long been something that people have been interested in, but it has really explosive growth right now, right? So I know W3 is starting to offer patio on Sundays. I'm like, it's a big focus for people right now. So that's one part of my job that's really fun. It's just understanding where people are going, what are different generations looking for. And so that's also a really big part of my job, which is exciting.
Wow. So you like drive the back end
Yeah,
and it's
we get to decide what are we doing next. Yeah.
wow,
Yeah.
cool. And you're a member of ours. I feel so lucky. And so with a lot of that information and stuff that you have, what are some of or not what kind of trends and data do you have access to that most people don't?
Yeah, well, one thing that's really exciting is we have sort of the largest number of active personal trainers in the field. So NASM has the largest certification body, and we just have a huge number of active trainers. So we actually just completed a state of personal training survey with our members, and we just learned a lot about what are clients asking for, what are the things that they asked about last year that they're not asking about this year, and vice versa. So we hear a lot. I think I mentioned GLPs, so we hear a lot of our trainers are saying people are asking me, how do they maintain their muscle? How do they, as they're losing weight on those medications, what do they need to do to change the way that they move in order to retain that muscle and strength? So, right, that's something that's really trending for us. Another thing that we hear a lot about from our trainers in our surveys is really that rise, as you know, in strength training. We've gone from that cardio focus and maybe even more of the physique and appearance focus to a wellness, longevity, strength focus. I want to be able to keep doing these things and these movements until I'm 80. So, what do I need to do now in order to make that happen? So, that's another big piece that we hear a lot about from the trainers that we work with. So, that's one thing that's really exciting. We have a lot of folks in our community, and they're really excited to tell us what's new, what's next, what do they need more education on. So, that's really fabulous.
Yeah, that is. And the fact that you guys are able to produce like quality content
Yeah.
that gives the trainers continuing education credits and to
Yeah.
maintain their certifications because it's only good for 2 years,
Yep.
correct?
So, yeah. So, all of our personal trainers and our group exercise instructors take continuing education courses. So, right, I'm thinking about Pilates would be a great option to be maybe that's not the full Pilates certificate, but you want to be able to offer a paleo class. You want to be able to incorporate some of those movements into your group exercise classes. Great. Here's a quick hitter that you can take over the weekend, re up your certification, and continue to learn and grow. I think that's another really exciting focus for us. And thinking about, too, how can we expand people's knowledge into nutrition? So we have a whole nutrition coaching program. I know that's something a lot of people at W3 are really passionate about. You have a great supplement line and really thinking about what are ways that we can fuel as well in order to perform and move and feel fit and well the way we want to.
Mhm. And do so within our scope of practice
Yep,
as
yeah,
trainers because that's a big
absolutely.
part of it.
Mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
definitely. So you just got back from a trade show.
Yeah.
Which trade show was it again?
It's HFA, so the Health and Fitness Association. So they have a massive conference every year. This year is in beautiful San Diego.
Mhm.
I feel like the perfect place to go from the Chicagoland in March.
Totally.
And yeah, it's a great show. It's really geared towards, health club and boutique fitness owners. So there is just a ton of equipment. Perform Better, which I know is the equipment that we use here at W3 Body. I get to see them, all kinds of different types of equipment. And so that was really exciting. A lot of different folks that have different kinds of supplements. I chatted with the liquid IV people for a while, right? Thinking about how that's a really interesting space of how do you get the right information to your customers in the right moment in time. Like there's a million supplements out there I could take. Why would I buy liquid IV at the gym? Tell me more about this. I think that's a super interesting puzzle for trainers and coaches to kind of help solve, be that sort of mediator of like, here's what I like and here's why.
Right.
So that was a big focus. And then a lot in the wellness and sort of brain health space, which I thought was really exciting to see. I spent a while talking to a group that makes different kinds of brain health almost games. They're physical games where you're tapping different things at different times, but the focus is really on brain health. So they use them with older people with different kinds of medical recovery. So, for example, you might be recovering from a concussion or a stroke, and also just, again, that longevity focus. I want to be quick on my feet. I want to be able to have my brain make these connections for a long time. And so that was an interesting part of it too.
Wow. So
Yeah.
would you say, is that what stood out to you the most?
Yeah, I think the brain health really did stand out to me. I think the overall focus, though, that the piece that stood out to me the most and that we talk a lot about at NASM is just this sort of holistic wellness focus that fitness is moving to. It's not just about like, I'm here for an hour today to lift some weights. I'm actually here. This is one part of my whole wellness journey. And W3 Body helps me with my wellness in lots of different ways. So I've learned about supplements from coming here. I've gained a sense of community from coming here. I've learned about how to do strength training and balance that with cardio. I know that's one thing. You have another great podcast episode on that, on how to balance out the number of times you do strength training and cardio during the week. But we talk a lot about sort of coaches and trainers being the sort of center of this wellness hub, having great recommendations for like, seems like you're having a lot of pain in that movement. Here's a great physical therapist that I know. Physical therapists are a great asset in this field. Seems like, muscle recovery is a little bit challenging right now. We've got some great supplements, creatine, or I know Denise Waffinger, her protein intake, here's how I get my protein in. So we think about that a lot, is that hub. We've got a wheel and spokes coming off it and all the different wellness directions, mental health, physical health, nutrition, and trainers kind of being at the center of that. So HFA really kind of connected all of those dots for me of like, we've got our supplement focus, brain health, wellness, recovery, all of that was sort of like beautifully on display this
Yes.
year.
Yeah, you're touching on a lot that
Yeah.
what we hear mirrors exactly what you're saying. A lot of brain health stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
recovery, but that longevity piece is so key. And where I hear it the most is in our initial appointments with prospective members coming into the gym. And we ask them about their goals and what they want to accomplish. And ultimately, are you looking to feel better, look better, move better, perform better? And I feel like 5, 10 years ago, look better would have been like the top answer. And I feel like now people actually hesitate to say that. And it's like, I just want to feel better. I want more energy. I want to move better is a big one too.
Yeah.
And but it's the thinking long term that really it has definitely shifted, which is great, I think, because it's so hard to stay consistent if you're short term, if you're thinking of it in a way that's short term. So.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that really mirrors the data that we're seeing sort of across the industry. Is absolutely 5, 10 years ago, we saw much more of that focus on appearance. And I want to look better for this event. I want to look better for this. And that changed to, I've got this long-term goal of when I'm 80, I want to still be able to move in this way. Or I feel like at W3 Body, I'm feeling this way. I'm like, I'm approaching an age in my life where I know that my muscle mass is going to decrease or my bone mass is going to decrease. I'm not approaching 80, but I'm approaching that point in my life when my body's going to change. What can I do now to slow that down?
Totally.
Or prevent it from happening?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's one place that's super exciting and just super inspiring is to thinking about it more holistically. It's all of these pieces. And we talk a lot about the community and social aspect of that, right? The gym and the health club being that third space for
Yes.
people. They're outside of their home. Lots of people have a lot of success training within their homes. That's fabulous. But for a lot of people, that third space of it's not home, it's not work. I can go here. It's a different group of people. It's in person. It's social. I know W3 Elmhurst has that 6 a.m. club, right? They're like living that best community of life, right? So I know that's another thing that we talk a lot about, and I think it's a really big aspect of the fitness industry right now.
Yes. And did you hear much on like AI and things like that? Because that's a hot topic among owners and people in my circle. That what do we have that AI doesn't have?
Yeah, no, I think, and we hear that from our trainers as well, right? I know one of the questions you'd written down for me is like, what are fads that we don't like? And I'm like,
Mm.
oh, using AI to program your exercise workout,
Yeah.
right? That's, ugh.
For the record, we don't. For the record,
um,
all
I'm
of
like,
ours is tested.
I'm like, you
Check.
have the knowledge and insight to know what people need at any given time. So, right. So I think that is certainly a challenge. But one of the things that's really interesting that we see is that real focus for like the in person. Right. People can see how you're moving. They can correct you in the moment. I think that's the real magic of coming here or working with a personal trainer is it's great to be able to lift weights, but if you're not lifting with the correct form, like
Mhm.
there's some big danger there for you. So having that like in real time correction is a really big benefit that we're continuing to see. And I think again, it's that leaning into the community. I feel like you do that here so well with the different special events and like the Zumba special event, the
Mhm.
breathwork special event, just those little things that keep it lively and interesting, and you want to come back, right? So
Yeah, we're big on connection.
yeah, absolutely.
The social aspect is huge because, a squat is a squat. No one's coming here to do a squat variation.
Yeah, yeah.
So, um, but they come here for, yes, great workouts, but for the community, the relationships that they build with the coaches, but also with each other.
Yes,
So,
yeah, and that's
definitely.
like a huge part of mental health, right? We think
Mhm.
about like again that wellness hub, like yes, moving your body is good for mental health, but connecting with other humans is hugely good for mental health. So
Yes,
I think about that a lot too.
absolutely. Yeah. Anything surprise you in particular?
You know what's interesting? One of the things that surprised me the most was I went to a session where they kind of ideated on like, well, what do we think, gyms are going to be like in 5 or 10 years when AI has really taken over, when wearables are just everywhere, when your wearable connects with every machine that you touch.
Mm.
And this person had put together sort of a video montage of imagine what this would be like. And right, it's a little bit like the Matrix walks into a gym and it's like all of your stuff is talking. And I'm like, that might happen.
Yeah.
That might. It's very possible. I think a lot of us don't quite know where AI is going to take us, and we've had wearable technology for quite some time, and it hasn't necessarily taken over in the gym
Mhm.
space. I've got my Fitbit on or your Apple Watch, right? Whatever it is, it's not necessarily driving all of the things that I'm doing right now. So that continues to surprise me. Is like where is that going? How are we sifting through all of that data, sleep data, performance data? That has sort of yet to be fully unlocked. And I do think that's probably on the horizon. But do I think I'm going to like walk into a gym in 5 years and it's going to instantly read my wearable and tell me all the things I should do? It's like, probably not.
Mhm. I hope not.
I was like, that seems a little far fetched.
Yeah.
And again, it goes back to the like, well, why am I coming here? It's not just to get the best possible workout. That's certainly part of it. It's that community. It's that sense of like accountability. I'm not going to actually do this in my home. I could, but
We
I
all could.
I just
Yes.
don't.
Right.
So it also speaks to like what's the purpose of this space? And I think that we know deep in our hearts the purpose of this space is that sense of community. It's that third space. It's the accountability.
Mhm.
So that was definitely something that surprised me, and we'll keep it on our radar. But I think we hear every year about wearables, and I'm just waiting for that to be unlocked. It hasn't happened yet.
Mm.
So
Wearables being a fad?
of just
Or
like how we're actually using them to inform our training choices, right? Like I think that still has yet to be proven out in a broader way.
Mhm.
But
I will say that I think certain wearables, well, I guess I can only speak for the ones that I use, which is my MyZone belt, my Apple Watch, and my Aura Ring, which is That's 3.
Yeah,
And
that's a good
sometimes
collection.
they're all being used at the same
Yeah,
time, which
yeah.
is ridiculous. But I use each one for its individual purpose.
Yep,
And I
yep.
think that have they influenced my behavior? Absolutely. Do I get annoyed sometimes?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
So
yeah.
sometimes I'm like, I really need to just detox from this for a bit, just like go natural. Like I should have the
I
motivation to sleep better and move more. And
I think that is the challenge. They provide us so much data that sometimes you're like, well, what are the 3 actionable things I can do tomorrow with this, right? I
Mhm.
think that sometimes that's the thing that can be hard to sift through, or what's the one actionable thing? Because
Yeah.
honestly, my to-do list is so long.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes going old school, just like what's your perceived rate of exertion
yeah, yeah.
right now? Like, is your heart rate up or isn't based on how you feel? Like,
Yes,
did
yes.
you sleep well? Like, can you?
Yes,
So
yes. I know. I
I
often
know.
laugh at my sleep score because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I know that I was up at 4 a.m. I
Right.
didn't need to see that
Yeah.
sleep score number
I
today,
know.
but
Sometimes I don't want to look
I
at
don't want to know.
it. Totally. Anything else that's trending right now that you found interesting?
Yeah, I think one thing that was exciting to see at the conference was just all of the different recovery tools. So, lots of red light therapy, whether that be masks that you can wear, things that you can hold over different specific muscles. I feel like red light therapy was definitely something that we saw. And contrast therapy, both hot and cold therapy. I was really intrigued to see all the different ways you can do cold therapy that don't involve getting wet because a lot of gyms don't like to have to deal with that amount of water and the plumbing. So, either little fridges you can walk into or chairs that kind of encompass you and keep you cold. But I know that there is just a lot of increasing data about that contrast therapy in particular. And it's interesting to see some of the things that move from the performance space. So, athletic performance would have focused on contrast therapy for years and how we move that into sort of the general fitness and wellness space. So athletes for years have been doing cold plunges, but now how do we, as someone who's focusing on just general fitness, how do I incorporate that into my routine, right? I think that's another interesting trend that you see. I think it's similar in the supplement space. Like I was talking with a colleague about, different hydration options, and those are things that too, you have to be a little bit conscious about, was this particular hydration choice meant for an extreme athlete who's been working out for 3 hours running a marathon? They might need a different hydration solution than I do after I finish an hour-long workout at the gym, right? They
Mhm.
certainly need a different hydration solution. So thinking about those things as they move from the performance space into the everyday fitness space is another interesting thing that I think about and that we see at the conference for sure.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Just to note on that, like something that I see or talk about often with coaches,
Mhm.
because there's so much online with like, on Instagram and TikTok and just some crazy movements. And it's, let's do this, next month. And I'm like, who is able to execute that movement well? Not general population, which is who we serve. That
Yes,
is meant
yes.
for an athlete. You're totally right in every aspect of fitness and
Yeah.
supplements and everything else. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's one of the things, certainly in the hydration example we're talking about, we're like, look at how much sodium this has. That I don't need that much sodium after I worked out. I did sweat for sure, but I'm not outside running in 90-degree weather for 3 hours. That
yeah.
person needs something different. So, right, just being really cognizant of
Yeah,
that. And
great point.
it's interesting that you mentioned the like sort of people following different influencers and seeing different moves. One thing that we talk a lot about at NASM, I'm not sure if you're familiar with our optimum performance training model. The OPT model is what NASM has sort of coined and developed and researched over many years of how we recommend people develop exercise programs. So the foundation of that is stability. And we always talk about like stability, strength, and power. And you really need that stable base before you can progress up. And so it's interesting that you talk about these exercises that can have more complex moves, because one thing we always emphasize is like, it doesn't even have to be fancy. You don't have to be standing on a Bosu ball. You don't have to be doing everything with one leg. You're building that stability that allows you to move every part of your body. And sometimes it doesn't sound flashy. You're
Right.
like, balance. And you're like, oh, am I doing this? I thought I was going to be lifting heavy things. And you're like, you will lift heavy things,
Right.
100%.
Right.
But this part of it is so important. And I think when we think about things that are maybe not as trendy, but super important, we're like, oh, it's building that stable base. It's like from the bottom up. We talk about like every single point in the sort of kinetic chain, like are your your feet in the right place or your knees in the right place. I know personally I struggle with that. Sometimes I'm like, I can tell that my knee is over my toes. I'm like, it's not doing what it's supposed to. So we're all sort of building that up over time. And that's something I think a lot about too.
I love it. I love it. You're speaking my language. So speaking of the latest trends and things like that, what is declining or becoming less effective that you guys are seeing?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I'm not sure that I would say it's becoming less effective, but I think, and we've talked a little bit about this, just that extreme focus on cardio has changed massively in the last 5 to 10 years. So we're seeing that our trainers are less focused on being able to lead HIIT classes or things like that, and more focused on that strength. And we're seeing that rise of like the hybrid of like, okay, I want to be able to do strength and fit cardio in, and how do I maximize both of those things? But I think that's a real massive change that we're seeing across the industry. I feel like we talk to health club owners all the time who are like, listen, I ripped out 4 treadmills and put in a new like weight training floor. And you're like, oh, that's a massive change that I don't think we necessarily would have predicted 10 years ago. So again, those things aren't becoming necessarily less effective. I think just with that continued focus on longevity, functional movement, how am I going to be able to continue doing these movements? I feel like I can't tell you how many articles I've read recently about glutes. That's like, this is the muscle that if you want to be able to get out of your chair when you're 80, and you're like, yes, yes, I know that. So I think that, I think that's just an interesting change that we don't necessarily say like, well, if you want to get out of your chair when you're 80, you need to be running 10 miles a day, right? So I think that, again, they're not becoming less effective. It's amazing exercise. Treadmills have a beautiful place in many gyms. And we're happy to support cardio programming. NASM has a great course on advanced cardio programming, but I just do know that our trainers are doing much less of that than they used to.
Right. Totally. The industry in general, gyms are being built around strength training only, and they don't offer any cardio, which is it's fine. It's one concept, but I'm really curious. Maybe we should do this podcast again in 5 years and then see or 3 years, because the swing of towards, I should say, strength training has swung really hard that way.
And
But
and it's
is
not
it gonna
necessarily slowing down yet.
right, right. And I love that, but we still need cardio for heart and lung
Absolutely.
health. And what
Mhm.
I would hate for people to abandon cardio completely just because they need to move their bodies
Yes. Yes.
outside of strength days. So that's what I tell people coming in.
Mhm.
Like, we want you to make strength training the priority. We offer cardio classes on your non-strength days if you are not already doing a form of cardio that you enjoy. If you enjoy it, do it.
Yeah.
But if you don't, we have an option for you, but you do need to move on other days.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be interesting.
Yeah.
How about coaching? How is coaching evolving?
Yeah. I think the real big evolution that we see, I think, again, is around that. I want my personal trainer to be able to give me advice on things that are sort of outside of just the way that I should move my body for this exercise. Can you give me some feedback on nutrition? Can you give me some feedback on supplements? Can you give me some advice or connections that you have with a great, breathwork coach, a great physical therapist, right? Again, that sort of person that's serving as the hub. And then I mentioned the GLP medications. I mean, research tells us that like 1 in 8 Americans are currently taking a GLP-1, which is just a massive
Wow.
number
That is
of
a
people,
massive number.
right? And so that's another thing that our trainers are adjusting to. Are they worried that like is that going to make people less likely to come into the gym if the gym was their primary motivation was to lose weight? Or is it a thing that we can do in tandem and again, going for that sort of like holistic wellness? So I think that's a really big way that coaching is changing. And I love that you mentioned earlier, how you hire your coaches, not just on certification, but again on personality and how you can talk to people. And I think that's another thing that we sort of consistently see is like how the industry changes in such a way that like, how do I market myself? How do I stand out? How am I not just overtaken by influencers? And again, it's that like, I want to work with you. You're a great person. You make me enjoy this hour that I spend with you. I think that's another big focus in that personal training space.
Yeah. And do you feel like, is there any trend around like people moving more towards accountability, personalization, community?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I will have to dig more into our data on that in particular, but I do think personalization is a really big driver. What are my personal goals? How are you going to help me achieve them? How are you going to help me achieve them in such a way that I'm making continuous progress?
Mhm.
I feel like that's another thing that we hear a lot about. That's why NASM and different organizations have those programming models to sort of help trainers take a little bit of that burden off of every client wants a personalized program. That makes a lot of sense. How do we create that based on their individual needs and where they begin?
So, what's something that's not trendy but still works incredibly well?
You know what we talk about at NASM is we have this optimum performance training model. So that's the model that we developed and have researched over decades to sort of design exercise programs for clients. And the base of that is stabilization. And, sometimes we hear feedback that people are like, this is boring for my clients. I can't get them to do this. They want to focus on strength and power, which are the next phases in the model. And it's tricky because I'm like, stabilization doesn't sound trendy. It doesn't sound flashy, but it is like the cornerstone of being able to move effectively. And one thing that we talk about, the subject matter experts that write our courses will talk about is stabilization exercises don't have to be with fancy equipment. It doesn't have to be standing on one leg on a Bosu ball, but it's just like, how are you building your core starting from your feet all the way up to your neck and head, right? So I think that's one of those things that we don't hear. We don't hear a lot of trending news on how to build balance and stabilization, and yet it continues to be so important.
We talk about it with our coaches, just like if someone is struggling to do the baseline of the movement, please don't progress them. Like, I know that everyone wants to do the hardest
Yeah.
version,
Yeah.
but like, stick to the basics until each client earns the exercise to be able to progress to the next level. It's not sexy, but it works.
Yeah, yeah, and I think just really acknowledging that, like, that's huge progress. Being able to
Exactly.
to stabilize your body and do this movement correctly
Yes,
is huge
without
progress.
assistance. Yeah,
Yes,
totally agree.
yes.
Absolutely. And so why do you think people chase trends though instead of sticking to what works?
Yeah, it's so interesting. To some extent, we are all looking for like sort of what's new and exciting and going to keep me engaged. So I know you and I have talked a little bit about this is like, how do you have sort of a long term goal that you're working towards and stay motivated and accountable for that? And so I think sometimes you're like, this goal that I'm working towards has been really hard. What if this thing made it easier? What if I try this new supplement? What if I try this new move? What if I So I think that is always the thing that we're fighting against.
Mhm.
And our trainers certainly give us that feedback. I was looking through some of our survey data today, and one of the open comments was like, what else do you want us to know about the state of personal training? And it was like, we want to tell people to stop following influencers. And you're like, I mean, they're still going to follow influencers.
Yeah.
We're all drawn to it. We want to see what's out there.
Yep. The algorithms got us.
Yes, yes, and also sometimes it's just like we know what's right for us, and we do need to stick with it.
Yeah. And so with that, like for women in particular, what do you feel like they need to really be focusing on right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's funny because outside of the fitness space, I would be like, make time for yourself.
Yeah, right. Well,
Um,
so it starts there for sure.
right? Thinking about that sort of holistic wellness is like, I mean, I feel like it's funny. I talk about this with other moms that I know, and I'm like, talk about W3 Body, talk about whatever workout, and people are just like, it's hard to prioritize. Like, it is so hard to prioritize those couple of hours every week. So I think that's the one thing I think the most about that we don't have a magic solution for is how to help people prioritize that time. And honestly, I know that's what our personal trainers say too, is one of the biggest hurdles that they have with their clients is just like, how do I make the time? And even for me, sometimes I'm like, it's only 4 hours a week, Laurel. It's not a
Mhm.
crazy amount of time.
Mhm.
But there are still days that I'm like, I signed up for that Wednesday session and I can't go.
Yep.
So I think that is the one actionable thing is just pick one thing for you that you can prioritize. NASM, ACSM, all of our ACE, all of our colleagues in this fitness space would say, move in some way every day, right? It
Mhm.
doesn't have to be some huge movement. It doesn't have to necessarily even be coming to the gym. I am like, I think a lot about what you said about cardio on your days off. I'm like, I count walking to pick up my kids from school.
Yeah, great.
I'm like, I count that. So I think that's the other thing I would say to people is just like, count your wins.
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. Yeah, we like to do that with the new members
Yeah,
too. Like
yeah.
2 weeks in, we're like, let's talk about your wins.
Absolutely.
What are the wins
Mhm,
so far?
mhm.
So if someone feels overwhelmed by all the options, all the trends or non-trends, things that feel like they're here to stay, like where should they start?
I know that is sort of the $1,000,000 question. I think this is why these or an organization like NASM is so powerful, and why I'm so proud to work with them is that right going to the source. Who are the people that are going to provide you the scientifically backed information about how to move, what to prioritize, and I think that is why coming to a gym and working with a trainer is so important. We know that, like, we talked about this. I could be doing this on my own at home, but I'm going to Google something and I'm not sure if it's going to be right. And so coming here and knowing that I have a great group of experts, I think is the place to start, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
good point. So are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's see if I can handle it.
Most underrated habit.
You know what? I can't tell you how many trainers I've worked with recently who are like talking up creatine.
Mm,
I'm like, everyone that is like a trend and a fad, but also has so much science behind it
right.
that I think it's like moved from being a fad into being like, wait, no, we've been recommending this for years for a reason.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that's a really big thing that I think about right now.
And so tying that into the biggest fitness myth right now, a myth or the way people think of it is that it's for bodybuilders. I think I mentioned this on
Yes,
one of my other podcasts
absolutely.
that
Hmm.
like before I started, I delayed taking it, even though I was so intrigued and
Yeah.
we had it and because it reminded me of boys in high school with their
Yes.
big water jugs. And I'm like, so that's what I tied it to.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think when it started getting related to brain health and things like
Absolutely.
that.
The brain health, I feel
Yeah.
like that's the number one thing that I hear about. So I think that's a piece that I'm like underrated for just us everyday people who want to feel a little bit more clarity. Again, we're working out, we want muscle recovery. Certainly, I've heard it recommended for people who are recovering from concussions. Like, I think the brain health side of creatine has been underrated for a long time.
Hmm. What's one thing every woman should do weekly?
I think the enjoyment piece is like far and away the like piece that unlocks it. We talk about this. My husband and I are helping to coach our daughter's softball team, and we're like, the number one thing is that you enjoy this and you want to keep coming back.
Yeah.
So the number one thing is like, it's okay if we don't hit every pitch. It's
Yeah.
okay if we drop those balls sometimes, as long as you're having enough fun that you want to come back.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that is unlocking the puzzle piece. And that's why I think it's an interesting that, again, that cardio trend is so interesting because I think some people find cardio less enjoyable. And so
Mhm.
they don't want to keep coming back. And so you have to remind people that cardio comes in lots of different forms.
Sure.
It is not just running on a treadmill. Find whatever it is that you enjoy and
Right.
just keep doing it.
Yeah. Or if you hate HIIT classes, like don't force yourself.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah,
necessary.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
One thing women should stop doing.
It's interesting that we talked about, like, if you don't like HIIT classes, just don't keep doing them. But I think one thing that I think I know I do, and I think is common among my friends, is second guessing ourselves and being like, "Ugh, I'm not going to like that. I just won't. I won't try it."
Okay.
um,
Clarify then
so,
after you try it once.
yeah. So I'm just like, try that new thing.
Sure.
Try that new thing. Don't stop yourself. Don't say, like, oh, I feel this way about yoga. And like when I was young, I did not have the patience to sit through a yoga class. And now that I'm older, I'm like, I need to rethink that.
Hmm.
I need to rethink that.
So going back, kind of tying that into the most overrated trend. I have one if you haven't
Oh,
thought of
yeah.
one.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. So you mentioned Pilates earlier.
Mhm, mhm.
And I think the most overrated trend, and I'm planning actually a podcast with someone right
Yeah.
now, trying to figure out our dates to talk about this, is doing Pilates as your main form and only form of exercise.
Yes,
That
yes,
kind
yes.
of really kills my soul. I'm sorry if you're listening to this and you really love Pilates. Please come talk to me directly.
Mhm.
Would love to have a conversation about it because months I've been trying to understand the Pilates trend.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've talked to certain people and why is it so trendy? And the number one answer that I've heard is that there's a low barrier to entry. It seems
Mhm,
really
mhm.
beginner friendly
Yeah.
and things like that. And that's awesome. And I do think there's huge value to add it to your fitness routine and regimen, maybe once a week or so. Just depends on your availability. But not as the main and only form.
Yeah. And you know what that makes me think of is just relying on any one thing to be the
True.
one thing that you do all of the time. Like
Yeah.
I know we're seeing this more in the youth performance space of like you've got a high school athlete who plays soccer 300 days a year and gets injuries because of that because they're moving the same muscles in the same way so many days out of the year. So I think about that too of like what is beautiful about coming to W3 Body is the variety of movements. It changes every month. It's different each day that you come. And I think that's another thing that we, of course, want to get into our habit of having a routine of a place I go to work out, but also how important it is to change up what you're moving and not getting too much stress on any one muscle group or any joint at any given time.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And finding those other modalities that can help with that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, at the end of the day, trends will come and go, but results come from doing the right things consistently. So if you're listening to this and you're realizing that maybe you've been jumping from trend to trend, this is your sign to get into a structured program with Real Coaching. Thanks for tuning in to Real Women, Real Results. If you loved this episode, be sure to follow the podcast and leave a review. It helps more women find these powerful stories. If you're local and want to join our gym, check out our 4-week trial. Head to train@w3body.com for more info. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, W3Body_Berwyn and W3Body_Elmhurst for more strength, support, and community. See you next time.